In this module, we looked at teaching grammar. So, where do we even start planning a grammar lesson?
Okay, so first of all, we need to identify the grammar point that we wish to teach. Once we know what the target language is, the next step would be to think of how this language can be introduced to students. Here we have a couple of options. As you probably remember, we can do it via a text, either reading or listening, or even a video, or via a story or situation. And the reason why we need a text or a situation is because, as mentioned earlier in the module, it is crucial to introduce language within a context, in order to make the meaning of the target language easier and clearer for the students. The context contributes to the meaning of the language, and can therefore help them understand it better.
Right, so this is the stage when we convey meaning, right?
Yes, exactly. The first stage for learning new language is to convey the meaning, and the most straightforward way of doing this is through a text or situation, or even through pictures. This is because it is very easy to contextualize language this way.
Okay, so I have already conveyed meaning successfully. Students have finished reading a text, answered comprehension questions. What now?
Right, so there are examples of the target language in the text, and they have read them. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
So now you have to draw the students' attention to this language, and your role is to check that they actually understand it.
So this is the presentation stage, yes? But what aspects of this new language do I have to present and clarify?
Okay, so when you present a new grammar point, you need to focus on the three separate elements: meaning, form, and pronunciation. It is very important that you deal with meaning first, and this is because it can be very frustrating for students to have to analyse how the language is formed, or to practice its pronunciation if they don't know what it means. There are a number of strategies to help you clarify meaning, such as timelines, concept-checking questions, clines, synonyms, giving examples, and many, many more. You can of course bring in realia or use mimes. And when you analyse the target language for teaching, you will need to consider which strategy will be most effective with the language you wish to teach. And I'm just going to say this again. Checking understanding is so important, and you really have to make this a habit in your classroom.
Okay, and how about form and pronunciation? When do I clarify them?
So, as I said, there is no flexibility when it comes to the order in which you deal with meaning. Meaning must always come first. However, in terms of form and pronunciation, the order is far more flexible. Form can be done before pronunciation and vice versa, whichever order seems most natural with the language you are presenting. When clarifying the form of the target language, you need to make sure you show students the patterns of the language. A useful tool is the substitution table, because it's visual and clearly shows both patterns and exceptions.
But we first teach patterns, not exceptions, correct?
Oh yeah, never try to introduce a new language by showing students exceptions before they understand the pattern.
And pronunciation?
Yes. Your role as a teacher is to provide an accurate model for the students, and then to have them repeat it, first chorally and then individually. This is called drilling. When dealing with pronunciation, you will also have to cover stress, intonation and weak forms, and difficult sounds. Whatever you do in the presentation stage, make the focus of the MFP interactive. Guide and prompt the students so they can notice things about the language.
So, once I have dealt with the meaning, form, and pronunciation of the target language, can I move on and ask students to practice the language?
Correct. If you don't give students enough practice of the new language, your hard work will be wasted. Unless students put the new language into practice, you never truly know if they understood your explanations. So, make sure students do at least 2 practice activities in one lesson. one restricted, use controlled practice activity, and one freer practice activity, which you can also nicely personalise so it's more memorable.
Okay, so this is the present, practice, produce approach, or PPP, right? Where you convey meaning, clarify the language, including meaning, form, and pronunciation, and then students do controlled practice and freer practice. Besides the PPP approach, are there any other ways of teaching grammar?
Yes, there are alternative approaches to the presentation via text or situation approach we mentioned earlier. There is a guided discovery approach, the inductive approach, where students work out the patterns and the rules of the target language themselves. There is also the test-teach-test approach, where, instead of presenting the new language first, students are asked to do a controlled practice activity, so that the teacher can ascertain their real needs and only address these in the presentation stage.
So, which approach should I use then? Which one is best?
All of these approaches are valuable and should be used. If you only rely on one approach, students will quickly get bored as the lesson will be very predictable. Also, different grammar structures lend themselves to different teaching techniques. So the answer to your question is, when you plan your lessons and analyse the language that you are going to teach, consider all the approaches and choose the one that would be most natural for the specific grammar point.